Revenge films.
My name is John, and my wife's name is Jessica. Just as we were about to celebrate our second wedding anniversary, my wife made an unbelievable confession. To my disbelief, Jessica told me that when we were in college, she had an affair with a married man for about 2 months, and that was my own father. My brain couldn't believe what she was saying, to the point where I asked my wife if she was playing a prank on me. My wife and I grew up together. We were childhood friends because our houses were close to each other, and when we were younger, we used to play together a lot. As we got older, we became estranged, and after we graduated from high school, I ended up going to college out of state. During that time, we didn't have each other's email addresses or phone numbers, and so, we were like strangers. Apparently, Jessica had always admired my father ever since she was little, and during those college years, she confessed her feelings to him, and they had an affair. However, after about 2 months, their relationship fell apart, and she told me that they broke up after that. A few years later, my father became ill and died. I'd come back home for my father's funeral service, and that was when I reunited with Jessica. We started to reminisce about the past and hit it off straight away. We exchanged phone numbers, and that was when we started to get back in touch with each other. Because I wanted to see Jessica, I started to come back to visit my hometown more frequently, and eventually, we became a couple. Even while I was away for college and not home, Jessica would often hang out with my mother as well as my sister and her husband, who lived at home with my mom. When Jessica and I started to officially date, my entire family, including my mother, was very happy for us. With all of that considered, it made this confession all the more unbelievable and shocking, and it made me wonder how my wife was able to maintain a relationship with my mother all those years after trying to destroy their marriage. The reason why my wife was making this confession to me now, after all these years, was because we were going to try to have children soon, and she said that she wanted to come forward before she became a mother herself. She said that in the beginning, she was planning on taking that secret to her grave, but that the more time passed, the more it was starting to weigh her down. This was all so shocking to me that after asking her if this was a prank, I was at a complete loss for words. But my wife kept talking.
I'm gonna be honest with your family and tell your mother and sister about this.
When she said that, I was even more shocked. But that was when I regained composure and tried to stop her. Don't do it.
Why?
Explanation.
I see. But no, I think I should tell them.
Don't do it. And this went on a loop. For my wife, perhaps she may have felt refreshed by confessing her secret, but I couldn't even imagine how my mother would feel. Even if it was in the past, she was going to be told that her husband was cheating on her, and not only that, but that the mistress was her own son's wife. I tried to explain to Jessica over and over again that this was going to become the worst situation. And then, after hours of discussing it, even though she seemed discontent, Jessica eventually said that she wouldn't tell anybody about this. We decided to end the conversation there, and said we would speak more about it the next day. I started to walk out of the house when Jessica tried to stop me.
But why? Let's sleep together.
But I ignored her, and I slept in the car that night. When I was in the car by myself, I was at a complete loss. I felt things I've never felt before, and my mind was a mess. I couldn't help but wonder why my wife was able to be so normal about it. Even though it was already terrible to be having an affair with a married man, the fact that that man was my own father made me so disgusted that I thought I was going to throw up. In the end, I wasn't able to sleep that night, and the next day, I went to work feeling nauseous, like I might throw up at any given moment. When I got to work, I was so busy that I was able to escape from reality for the time being. I was just thinking about staying to work overtime when I got a call from my sister. It was rare for my sister to contact me, much less give me a phone call at a time like this, so I had a bad feeling about it. When I picked up the phone, that bad feeling became true. To my disbelief, despite spending so many hours trying to tell Jessica not to say anything to my family, my wife decided to make moves on her own, and that morning had gone to my family home and told my mother and my sister everything. My sister was absolutely furious on the other end of the phone, so I tried to calm her down by saying that I would be right there, and I hung up and ran straight to my family house. When I got there, my mother was standing there silent in shock while my wife, Jessica, was sobbing. And then I saw my sister, who had completely lost it and was screaming at Jessica, as well as my sister's husband, who was desperately trying to stop my sister from attacking her. Jessica should have known that this was going to happen, and so I couldn't understand why she would go out of her way to tell them, and I especially couldn't understand why she was crying. When I arrived, everybody calmed down for a moment, and we all sat down to have an emergency family meeting. That was when we discovered that my mother actually knew about my dad's affair all along. Because my sister and I didn't have a clue, we were shocked in a different way to find out that our mother actually knew about it. Our mother then continued to tell us that at the time, fortunately or unfortunately, both my sister and myself were away for college. Because she didn't want to make us worry, she said that they settled the case of the affair between the two of them. She said that she then chose to forgive our father, and she chose to stay with him in the end. At the time, she said that she knew that her husband was having an affair, but because she was exhausted from the mere thought of that, and because she honestly didn't want to talk about the affair any longer, she didn't go further to find out who his mistress was. It was a given that my father wasn't going to confess who his partner was either, and he quite literally took that secret to his grave. However, after all these years, that was when Jessica dropped the bomb on them. Over the last few years, my mother, sister, and my wife all had a great relationship, going out shopping together and going out to eat together. Jessica truly felt like a part of the family, so I can only imagine how my mom and sister felt to find this out. Because the other person involved in this affair, my father, was already dead, we wouldn't be able to confront him about it, nor would we be able to channel our anger at him. I'm sure my father also never expected that his own mistress was going to start dating his son, and that he would even get married. After that, to begin with the conclusion of this story, my wife and I got a divorce. Because Jessica was having an affair with my father back when we were in college, and at the time, Jessica and I were nothing to each other, that wasn't the main reason for the divorce. But for me, I couldn't forgive Jessica for selfishly going to tell my mom and my sister about the affair. On top of that, I couldn't believe that she could normally hang out with the wife and daughter of the man that she was having an affair with. And to top it all off, to be able to marry the son of that man. Me! There was no way that I could understand the way that my wife's mind worked. When I told Jessica that I wanted to get a divorce, she threw a tantrum.
But why? Why do we need to get a divorce when I was finally able to lift this weight off my shoulders? I thought that we'd finally be able to be happy.
That's what she was screaming. But at the point of having an affair with my father, she had already destroyed our family's happiness. And then, she was making my mother relive that devastation. What part of that was happiness? Until all of this happened, I still had love towards my wife. But after everything that she did, any love remaining quickly disappeared. When my mom heard about Jessica's confession, even though she had forgiven her husband despite the pain, that wound was blown open, and my mother was hurt all over again. My sister said that she would never forgive Jessica, but of course that was a given. It would be more crazy to not be so angry after being betrayed that deeply. In the first place, I couldn't understand what Jessica's intention was by making that confession to us. How did she believe that she would be able to maintain a good relationship with my mother after confessing to her that she had an affair with her husband? My sister had also lost it on her, and that's why, when I arrived at the scene, Jessica was sobbing. On the other hand, it seems that Jessica couldn't understand why she was being yelled at when my father had already died, and she was trying to be honest about the affair. After all this time, I didn't know how I was able to marry someone who couldn't even understand something that obvious. But in the end, it had already been over 3 years ago that she had the affair with my dad, so there was no way to collect a settlement fee for the adultery. And that's why, in regards to the affair itself, there was nothing that we could do about it anymore. After I graduated from college, I was able to land a stable job at my current company, and my salary was also generous. Because of that, Jessica was able to live a comfortable life as a full-time housewife. I'm sure she was upset to be losing that as well, and so she stubbornly tried to deny the divorce. Jessica continued to insist on her stance that she didn't do anything wrong and refused to budge. There was nothing we could do anymore, and so I ended up calling her parents. Because we were childhood friends who grew up next to each other, of course I knew her parents well, and they knew our family. When they found out that their own daughter was having an affair with my father, they became super pale and came to our house, getting down on their knees to apologize. After they accepted the reality of the affair, I also honestly spoke to them that I didn't think I would be able to continue being married to Jessica after this. That's a given. Anybody would do the same. There must be something wrong with my daughter, who thinks that just because it's in the past, she can get away with anything. We will take responsibility and make sure that our daughter signs the divorce papers. We are so terribly sorry about what happened with your husband. They apologized over and over again to our family. When it comes to the affair, Jessica wasn't the only one who did wrong. Our father also messed up by accepting her advances. However, to continue to hang out with that family as though nothing had happened, and on top of that to get married to the son of that man, even Jessica's parents were struggling to understand their daughter's mind. And yet, despite everybody else being on the same page.
If I get divorced, then that's gonna make me a divorcee. I was just being honest. Why is an honest person being punished like this?
She was throwing another tantrum, but a few days later, Jessica's parents showed up at our house once again with the signed divorce papers from Jessica. And then, they said that as long as she was in this hometown, we were bound to run into each other, so they said that it would be terrible for all of us. And thus, Jessica's parents said that they were going to send her out of state to where her aunt and uncle were living. Also, even though the statute of limitations had passed already for the affair, they promised that they were going to make her take responsibility and send a settlement fee to our family every month. If I remember correctly, Jessica's aunt and uncle were extremely strict people who worked in factories in a rural area. She was thrown to them, and I heard she's being forced to work day and night at the factory that they own, without anywhere to run away to. Her parents said that if they let her stay at home, she probably wouldn't work, and just leech off of them for the rest of her life. And they thought that that would be best for everybody, and they forced her out. Jessica said that she made the confession because she wanted to have children, but I believe from the bottom of my heart that I'm glad this all happened before that.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.